Hello, party people. Market's going straight up. None of my stocks are. What? Let's do a little RVMD and then let's talk the rest of my portfolio because we didn't do it this week yet. Not much to talk about, but I'll do it anyway. RVMD, stocks trading 113 down from 125 when I did my video yesterday. The reason is twofold, and I think it's exactly what I talked about in my video yesterday, honestly, is that the at least several weeks in the FT is odd. And the reason why it's odd is that if AbbVie was in advanced discussions and a deal was basically imminent, probably by JP Morgan, then if Merck came over the top with a better bid and wanting to buy RVMD, usually they have to do that imminently, not in many weeks from now. A company would take the bird in the hand. So those things just don't jive, right? It would seem more likely that AbbVie walked and then Merck swooped in at another great price. Again, seems odd. You would have had an auction here, is my guess, not that you would have another bidder within 24 hours of AbbVie dropping. And we don't even know why AbbVie would drop, right? AbbVie said they weren't in discussions about an hour after the Wall Street Journal article came out. So what does this all mean? I think that it is very likely that this company is sold. I would say 90% likely. And I think that it is a big price. It's only one, source with that 28 to 32 billion range. But all things point to a big price based on AbbVie and Merck both in pursuit of this and potentially others as well. It's a big company, right? $30 billion deal is not easy to swallow. AbbVie has a $400 billion market cap. Merck has like a $330 billion market cap. Most importantly, Merck and AbbVie went up when they were announced as the lead to buy this. AbbVie has gone down since then. So the boards of these companies can feel pretty confident that, and the market as well, that this company, RVMD, is beneficial to big pharma. I think this drug they have could do $5 to $10 billion of sales, people think, and is pretty has a pretty deep moat, I think, versus the other that it might be in the pipeline. Of course, I have no idea. So what am I doing? Well, I'm still sitting on my 110, 115s that expire next week. Oh, that's right. That brings me to this point. Vol is so jacked. So next week's Vol is still pricing in either another article or a deal, and a pretty good chance at both of those, right? If I pull up January 120s, those are 430 by 5, and February 120s are 810 by 9, and March 120s are 10 by 1140. So what does that tell you? The market thinks it's most likely to be done by February OPEX, which is 42 days from now. But they still are pricing in, a 15 or 20% chance it takes till March. And as far as January goes, the market thinks there's a 40 to 50% chance it's done by the end of next week. So chew on that. I'm not as optimistic. That language, if it just said several weeks away, even that's not good. But the at least several weeks is a way for a banker to say, we are not close. We are, still in the courting phase. So then you might ask me, why am I so confident this is going to get done? I think it's going to get done because I think that you do have, you now have a sense of urgency by the RVMD board to take a bid. Whatever that bid ends up being remains to be seen. Whether it's Merck, whether it's AbbVie. AbbVie can still come back in. Just because AbbVie publicly said they're not in discussions doesn't mean they can't come back in. I will say that makes it much less likely, right? They could have just said, we're not going to comment. And there was no reason for them to comment because their stock wasn't tanking. So they had no reason to come to defense of their company and their stock. All it does is basically, they do it out of anger, kind of like they were a jolted lover. So they came out and said, we're not in discussions. And we know that's the case now because Merck's in discussions. So what do I like here? I like being short vol next week against common. So if you own some stock, I would sell like 120 calls against it. I like being short the 100 puts for next week. I don't think there's a very good chance that this all falls apart next week. Merck definitely could cool with them over price, and you can get a more cooled article. That could definitely happen. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen now at this stage of this, right? So in the chance you get a deal next week, that's fine. You sold 120 calls against your 100 stock. It's such a 114 stock. The stock's like 114 right now as I talk to you. I like February and March call spreads, either 120 130s or 115 130s. The thought there is if this gets done, this might have a decent ARB spread in it when the deal's announced. It could be as much as $5, given the size of the deal and the time it might take to close antitrust. So my band for a deal price is probably 130 to 150 kind of thing. I think 28 to 32 billion is like 132 to 156. So I'd be surprised, pretty shocked if the deal was below 130. If I had a gun to head, it would be like a 135 to 145 range. So if you do that 120, 130 or 115, 130 spread, you should capture it all. And I'm getting those on for 40 to 50% odds of it happening, and at that price. So for the 120, 130s, I was paying 4. You might have to pay more, like 450 now. And for the 115, 130s, I was paying 7. I'm not worried about February timeframe. That's 42 days from now. It would be shocking to me if this is not signed by then, or if we don't get a break by then. But if you want to be extra conservative, you could do March, and it's not really much more money. That's RVMD. I've been trading this really poorly, even since our video yesterday. I traded poorly because I bought stock to hedge some of my short 120 calls, and I bought it at 124, and it's 114 now. So it's a bigger position now. It's a 14% or 15% delta adjusted position that runs the gamut of common, the call spreads. I'm short 120 puts next week. I'm short 100 puts next week. I'm short 120 calls next week, and then I have the 110, 115 call spread on. So it's all over the fucking place. But if you're going to be short vol, I think shorting next week vol is one way to do it. I'm not so sure I would short outside of that. And I like the call spreads. All right, let's talk about other names really briefly. Let's see here. Forward and Yext, obviously the two most important ones. Look, we are in the go window, okay? I always thought these last 2 weeks were unlikely to have any deals. I think Monday's when it starts up again. Now, with both of these names, but more importantly with Forward, I think you can also get a break starting next week because the quarter's wrapped up, right? And they could put out a break with preliminary numbers for quarter 4 and with 2026 guidance. To be clear, my base case is not a break. I'm still at probably 80% chance of a deal with Forward, maybe 75 to 80% chance. And my price in that deal is low 30s, probably like 32, 33 to 35 if it's private equity. And if it's strategic, somewhere between 37 and 45. And I couldn't even begin to give you a handicap of which one of those two happens. I think it's more likely to be private equity, but who knows? I would like to point out something I found on LinkedIn. There are 2 executives on LinkedIn. One of them is the COO, and one of them is the head of marketing. They both joined in January of 2025, and they both came from Siva, which is the same company that the new CEO came from. So he brought in a lot of his former colleagues to join. They both posted on LinkedIn very interesting posts. They're long. One was 2 weeks ago, and one was last week. And the gist of the posts, which you could find on your own, you just have to go look up the vice president of marketing. I can tell you their name right now, actually. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on one second. I found it. It's the director of marketing and the COO. One's name is Ben Carrillo, Carrillo. He's the director of marketing. And the COO is Eric Brandt, Brandt. And just search their name, the word LinkedIn, and Forward Air, and you'll find them. So the director of marketing and the COO, long posts about wrapping up the year, what the year has meant to them, how kind of difficult the year was, but it was challenging. But they're so proud of how it worked out. But they really read like the best is yet to come. Like 2026 is going to be a fucking banger of a year. And I encourage you to read it yourself. You can see what it says, but it does not strike me as a company that is under pressure anymore, or that they have the wind at their face. It seems much more likely that they have their wind at their back. And again, I can't overemphasize enough. This is trading at 9 times EBITDA. 9 times EBITDA for when comps have been nothing but up. Nothing but up. Go pull up the charts of ODFL, SAIA. XPO is just a different beast, but that's basically trading at the highs of the year. And those are the LTL guys. On the asset light guys, forget it. Those stocks only go up. CHRW, EXPD, LSTR, only up, okay? And you don't need a deal here, right? I think you're in this weird situation now where if they break it and they put out the guidance, you're going to re-rate. It's going to re-rate over the next few months. And it might re-rate hard, right? You can get to a 12 times EBITDA multiple, I think, within 6 months. And if the street numbers go up to 350 for next year, the stock doubles or triples. That's the math. I think it was at 12 times. I think 350, I got to $50 a share. So it doubles. But again, 12 times EBITDA is not an aggressive EBITDA multiple for what I think is an equivalent or superior business model to those comps, right? They control 60% of the airport LTL business, apparently, whatever the fuck that means. So again, I fucking love Forward Air, okay? Yext, different beast. That, I think, has to have a deal. I don't think they have any path other than a deal. And I think the fact that we haven't got a break there is a very strong positive that we're heading towards a deal. But look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous there. I just think that you could get a good deal price given the dynamics and where it's trading, right? You don't need Herculean assumptions to get to a $10 stock price versus the 8 or 9 it's trading at. So, clearly I like Forward Air better, but Forward Air has a lot of debt on it, and Yext is debt-free and is in kind of a more boring, stable, cash-flowing situation. So, look, there's room for more than one stock in a portfolio. ABVX, I'm just short vol still. Nothing to talk about there. Obviously, there's no deal coming anytime soon there. I'll continue to short vol there. I'll probably short vol for February after my January expires. Excuse me very much. That is my Roomba starting. Let me mute that. I hate the sounds. There we go. Zim, I sold half of my common above 22. I'm still long 23, 25 February call spreads. There's no particular reason. I have a lot of exposures on, and it's just not one of my favorite names. It's like a 4% common plus maybe another 50 basis points in the Feb 23, 25 call spreads. That's it, guys. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. CYTK remains. I don't know if I talked about CYTK on here at all, but it remains probably one of my favorite bios for 2026. It's only a 6 or 7% position because I have so much exposures on, but I think the setup there is very BBIO-like. I think you're going to have a great launch with the drug, and I think that the data readouts in this year are tilted to them being in their favor. But mostly, I think it remains an acquisition candidate. And it's much cleaner to me than BBIO ever was as an acquisition candidate because you don't have the Pfizer LOE and the combo trial concerns with CYTK, right? And we know that they are for sale. This whole idea that Bloom would not sell it is not true. Novartis just walked for whatever reason at the high price point that they were going to pay for it. So I think CYTK offers a great risk-adjusted return for this year. I don't think you're going to get a $150 stock price, but I think it easily could be a $100 stock versus the 65 it's trading at. And I'm not really sure what your downside is here. I don't think the launch is going to go poorly. I think it's a superior drug. So I like CYTK. I got a few other ideas that are undisclosed that I can't really talk about. But yeah. Let's get some deals, guys. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'm out.